Hi, my name is Will, and welcome to the Distorted Transmission today, or should I say, welcome to Getting to Know You, an interview series dedicated to those who work behind the scenes in the periphery of New Zealand bands, making it all possible. There are always specific names that pop up over the course of an interview series, and one name is a common utterance in Auckland. Due to that, today's guest is a studio engineer from West Auckland, Zorran Mendonsa. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Will. Thank you for having me.
I'm always afraid of mispronouncing your name, so you'll have to tell me if I actually got that right.
I can't even remember how you said it. It's pronounced Zoran, but I'll take anything with a Z and ending with an N.
I haven't spoken to you sort of face to face in literally years. So how have you been? I think it's been about maybe 3 years since I've spoken to you.
Good, man. Now things are radically, well, not that different since when you last saw me. I had one kid, now I've got two. So it is fairly different. So that's kind of the major kicker. But apart from that, everything's the same. I still love my work. I still love being in this room. I still love exploring the work and finding out more about it and stuff. So yeah, all that stuff's the same. But I have two things that I'm responsible for, and I have to feed them and all that good stuff. So yeah,
When you said I love my work, I was momentarily afraid that you were going to say I still love my wife, and then this whole conversation was going to go on sort of a dark tangent that was going to be
yeah,
uncomfortable. As I mentioned, I often hear your name during interviews with local bands, and so I was hoping to sort of learn more about you, and by extension, other people to learn more about you, both as an engineer and as a person. I don't think we've really had an in-depth conversation about sort of who you are, where you're from, those sort of things, because I know that you moved to New Zealand when you were about 18. So could you
right.
give me some brief details of your childhood, where you were born, your journey to becoming a sort of a fully fledged Kiwi, that kind of thing?
Sure, man. Well, I'll tell you the important stuff. Like you said, moved here when I was 18, but being born and raised in India, it was maybe a bit different from the norm because I was raised in a Catholic family, and so that meant we listened to a lot of Western music, watched a lot of the Western, I say, English music, English movies, as compared to the film stuff there or the mainstream stuff there. So when I moved to New Zealand, it was very natural. All my favorite bands were playing here, something I never got a lot of back home. Um, Back home, it feels weird. Something I never got back in India. Uh, and so yeah, so it felt very natural for me to be here as a person because all my favorite stuff was kind of happening here. Um, and I guess it also gave me a bit of gratitude, like being raised in India. It's such a rat race. It's so busy, competitive, noisy, polluted. So when you come to a place like New Zealand, which is pretty much the opposite of that, um, I'm very grateful to have very simple things here, like a garden and fresh air and stuff. And so by extension, I'm grateful for all the work that I get, being able to do what I love, having a good balance. So I'd say my upbringing plays a part there because maybe if I'd not seen that, maybe I'd be a bit more complacent or ambitious. I don't know, but it makes me feel happy to be where I am.
I recall that you often sort of played guitar. Sometimes when I was in the studio with you, and I was doing stuff with a bunch of projects, you
Yeah.
quite often grab a guitar and maybe suggest a guitar idea or like a harmony. So it was pretty obvious from the outset that you were sort of primarily a guitarist.
That's right.
But I don't know anything about you sort of in a sort of a musical context outside the studio. So were you actually in bands before you became a studio engineer, or?
Well, being a studio engineer is something I always had at the back of my mind. Like I'd always loved hearing, like even when growing up and stuff, I was attracted more to bands that sounded amazing rather than maybe the ones with the better songwriting. Like for instance, when my parents would play the Beatles at that time, didn't get hooked into it heaps. I mean, I knew the songs and stuff, but I didn't love it. But when they played stuff like Queen, I was like, oh my god, like this is me. I want to go and listen to this on my own. Put a pair of headphones on and stuff. And so yeah, the studio engineer thing was always something that I wanted to do. But and of course, you know I did play guitar as well. I started late, really. I kind of started playing seriously when I was like 16. My dad plays a lot. He teaches. My eldest brother is an amazing guitar player. Like he's
Okay.
on YouTube. If you look him up, his name is Blackstrat Blues. And so if you're into the more rocky bluesy side of things, you should definitely check him out. I think I wanted to be a guitar player in a band more. And then the studio thing was, wouldn't say it's a backup plan, but I always thought I'd pursue that for my own knowledge, you know. And so coming back to your question, when I moved to New Zealand, I joined a couple of bands. Um, didn't really work out, nothing serious. But then I had the opportunity to audition for and later join probably my favorite band in the country at the time, or in the top two. Band was called New Way Home,
Okay.
and
Right.
yeah, so there it was they, you know, I used to travel all the way to the city for them, and I mean, well, sounds totally not that far away, but you know, for me, it was I had to get on a bus, and sometimes, you know, for a young student and stuff, it was a lot of money and stuff like that. So, you know, I'd make a lot of effort, come back at late after the gigs and whatever. So, I mean, I was really into them, and through a mutual friend, he suggested, he's like, "Hey, you guys got to check this dude out and stuff." And you know, they uh, we sorted out an audition, and then I joined that band, which was, I think, maybe the most known band that I was in, and we got to open for some of my favorite bands. We got to open for Meshuggah, Devin Townsend. We got to open for Slipknot and Machine Head, Killswitch Engage, amongst others. So those were definite high points for me, and it kind of like ticked off a lot of the guitar stuff bucket list, you know. And so after that, I'm like, okay, well, I've kind of done everything I wanted to do in a way. You know, play awesome shows with awesome bands, and uh, go up and down the country. We went to Australia as well, which was 2 weeks of just awesome fun. And yeah, so I think doing all those things with a somewhat successful band in New Zealand ironically made me happy with going more towards the studio route, which also, to be fair, was a financial decision.
I can definitely sort of appreciate the sort of the fact that you have sort of achieved international supports and things like that, and for like a New Zealand band, that's pretty much the most you can do. You know, once you're doing supports for international bands, unless you start touring internationally or something, or like take that larger step, that's really the end of the road. You can only really achieve that much. You know.
There's also part of me that thinks that if your music is, I mean, this might be a controversial or slightly insulting statement, but I feel like if your music is as good as like your favorite bands and stuff, then you stand a chance. You know, you do have a chance of going in. Like, look at Alien Weaponry or something. You know, they, I mean, maybe they had a few other boxes that they ticked besides having, you know, world class music, but I do think that if your music is that good, that, you know, makes people want to share it and, you know, go check it out, especially in like rock metal, where you're not super duper relying on the radio. It's more internet based, word of mouth based. Then you have more of a chance, but you've got to be in that, you know, as good as the 5%. I mean, best is very subjective, but you kind of have to like beat yourself up a lot at home, and the stuff that you create at that ground level has got to be like wow, you know, and then everything else is a bonus. And I mean, I guess I'm kind of saying my job is a bit redundant, but you know, it's just dressing it up and stuff, you know. But you got to have the foundation. But if that um, the stuff that you write is just the notes and the melodies and the rhythms, which I often can't do anything about and change it dramatic. I mean, it's, you don't want to write a completely new song for the most part, but I feel like if your music is up there, then you can definitely transcend those normal barriers or boundaries.
The amount of effort and the difficulties of like traveling, let's say internationally, and the
Yeah.
costs. I mean, if you want to be a family man, or like run a business, or have a sort of a regular life. You have to basically just sacrifice that all for the sake of being exhausted on the road. So I don't think that many people would actually go that far and want to sacrifice that much of themselves. So
It's often ridiculously tiring, and you do get sick of not having basic stuff like a comfortable bed and clean clothes and normal food.
if Metallica are getting sort of like homesick and stuff, like you can imagine what the average New Zealand sort of like touring guy is, because I mean they probably have comfortable beds and fresh clothes.
Yes.
Pretty much everything done for them. All they have to do is walk on stage and sit down, play their thing, and leave, and then get drunk or hang out. They don't have to do any of the hard grind. So, yeah. Who have you been recording over the course of 2022, and who are you set to record going forward?
Well, 2022, I've been working with Caridian, who are just awesome to work with. I love working with them. I've been working with Shepherd's Rain, who are, I don't know if I should give you more detail about these bands, but I'll just name them. I've also been working with Crooked Royals, who got signed to 3 Dot Recordings, which is pretty awesome. Been working a bit with City of Souls, bit of bass recording for Blind Spot, and a couple other cool bands, like there's this one band called Dogtooth Amethyst, and they just did a bit of vocal recording in here. So just bits and bobs for some bands, but some of those earlier bands were like bigger projects, albums and stuff like that. So quite varied. Some mixing work for, even non-metal and rock stuff. There's there's a country artist that I work with quite a lot. His name is Keith Pereira. And he's got an amazing voice, so I love working with him. And who else? I mean, that's kind of the stuff I remember. There's a few others, but yeah. And looking forward, there are a couple of bands. There's one band called Vital Sign that I'm just about to start working with, and there's another band lined up for a bit later in the year called Amphetamine. So yeah, got those projects lined up.
Okay, I've heard of most of those bands, so that's most of those bands are kind of currently in the scene, if you like, for lack of a better word, sort of like doing things. So yeah, good stuff, man. All right, so next question. This is more of an introspective, but what are your strengths as an engineer, and would you say you have weaknesses or unfamiliarities with recording certain styles or situations? I did notice in the past when I did stuff with you, there is a Zorran sound, if you will. It's kind of a modern. Well, I mean, I was only really sort of like dealing with rock and metal with you, but it was kind of like a modern metal sound that you sort of go for. I don't know much about the sort of sounds that you produce when you're working with sort of other genres. So my experience of you is somewhat limited. But yeah, are there any weaknesses or unfamiliarities you have when you're sort of working with certain styles or situations?
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely some weaknesses, which I am more aware of about myself a few months after I finished that particular project. But weaknesses, I would say, I don't know. I guess sometimes I feel like my opinion is not wanted or warranted, and I kind of I've tried to work on this, but I've often held back my opinions for fear of hurting someone's feelings, and I hate to be a douchebaggy kind of person, and this is someone's song and their baby that they're bringing to me and stuff, and then I go, hey, your baby's ugly, so I don't want to change their name, but I hate to sort of I've gotten more comfortable with that kind of thing recently, and I've realized that that's kind of what people are paying me for in a way.
Yeah.
So I actually do ask them, I'm like, how much of my opinion do you want? How happy are you with the songs? How much on a scale of 1 to 10 do you want me to be honest with you? So, that kind of thing. So I've worked on that, but I think those would probably be my shortcomings, where I've just maybe felt a bit hesitant in certain situations.
When I went in to do stuff with you, and you actually asked that question, like, how much of me do you want me to sort of inject into this sort of concept or project. And I thought it was refreshing because I have worked with the old engineer over the past 10 or 20 years, and some just shut up and just record you and then just hand you the product and you leave, and then years later, sort of like you like return to it, you listen to it again, and you go, man, this is garbage. Like, why didn't anybody say anything at the time? And the production's never quite up to what you imagined it was at the time. But one
Yeah.
thing I liked about you was you actually saying like how much sort of my opinion do you want to hear, and you always come up with like really clever sort of like ways to sort of layer things so things sound fuller, like using like subtle synths and things like that, or like subtle guitar harmonies that you don't actually hear but are there, and so like subconsciously you kind of hear them and they kind of build the guitar part, but they're very subtle. Also vocal harmonies, things like that. Like you come up with some really interesting harmonies that I would have never picked, and then when you put them all together, the song suddenly sounds fuller, and that really works in like the sort of like the heavy rock / metal genre really well. Probably also in others. So yeah, I think it's a benefit that you do that. So yeah, I don't think you should be hesitant or sort of self-conscious about doing that, because I think it can potentially bring a lot more to a song, and that's a good thing.
Thank you, Ben. I mean, I try to fill in the blanks. Those are often the things that people can't do themselves. Like harmonies, guitar layers, synths. That most people can do all the basic stuff just fine. Really well, and they've been practicing their core instrument. But it's just the stuff that usually goes around it in a recording that they need usually. So that's where I try to step in.
I discovered the Jens Bogren Amp Knob Rev C plugin recently via my mate Jared, which is a very easy way to get a nice guitar sound on the fly. I'm sure you've heard of it. Lots of people use it. Have you discovered anything interesting yourself? Any plugins for the bedroom sort of studio enthusiast?
Well, see, the last part of that sentence is the key there. It's like, so you're asking for something for an enthusiast. I mean, that's a great plugin there because it's only got one knob, hard to mess it up. Funny enough, they put out a bass version today of that exact same thing. So they've got the bass one, which I think actually sounds amazing, and I think that's a bit harder to achieve than the guitar version of that. So by extension, I'd say that. But then you've got stuff for drums like Easy Drummer, which I think is fantastic, because if you're a guitar player, you got Easy Drummer, and they also have like a songwriting tool which can help you build the structure of the song, find like a verse drum beat, a chorus beat, a bridge beat, etc. So the verse will usually have like a closed hi-hat thing, and the chorus will have crashes, and the bridge will have a ride, for instance, and different dynamics and stuff. It makes it all easy. And I guess that's the drum one, and there's the bass one. For synths, I mean, for keys and stuff, there's not really too many easy ones out there. I would say there's usually whatever software you've got, they've got a few, so just use them. And I mean, I'd say to the bedroom enthusiasts, just do a little bit every day for like 6 or so months. Be willing to, struggle through that first period. It's going to be horrendous, but then at the other side of that, you're going to be a lot more comfortable, and it's going to be like another instrument, which is kind of why I got into the whole recording thing. It was like I was just wanting to do it for myself, really, for my own music, and then people listened to it and they were like, "Hey, can you do my one as well?" And I was like, "Really? Okay, sure." And then they started offering money to me, and I was like, "Really? Okay, great." So it was a bit accidental, but yeah, I just say that would be more than any software and stuff. I just be like, just keep chipping away at it. Don't throw your computer in the bin. And sooner or later, it's going to be an amazing tool like another instrument. So yeah, it's going to be creative.
What is the easiest way for people to get in touch with you for studio time?
The easiest way would be Facebook or email. If you search my name, Zorran, Zorran, into Facebook, you'll get both my personal page and my business page. And
OnlyFans.
we're not there yet. If things don't go well, then we might have to go there. But yeah, so there's also Instagram, Zorran1, because Zorran was taken, I guess. I don't know. But Zorran at Gmail was not taken. So if you want, you can get me on old school email.
Your little Facebook icon is a face swap that I did of you, and I think it was your daughter at the time.
Yep.
Black and white photo. I was quite surprised that you're still actually using that photograph, because it's been there about 7 years now.
I just love that photograph. It's just because I love taking the mickey out of stuff, you know. I love like having a laugh at sometimes other people's expense, but I've learned to shut my mouth now, and hold back, and yeah. But I love just taking the mickey out of stuff. So that's like I guess taking the mickey out of being a parent or something. It's like you put the thing on a pedestal and stuff, and I'm like, I just loved it, so I just thought it was hilarious. And it's so funny you mentioned that, because my wife mentioned it like yesterday or 2 days ago. She's like, why do you still have that profile picture? And like so old now. And yeah, I just loved it. I don't know if I'll ever change it. It'll be with me for a long time. I might change something briefly, but I'll probably go back to it.
All right, man. I guess we should probably wrap it up. So all the best for. Actually, we're going to do a brief little studio tour.
So this is like, there's the amps here. I've got 2 amps. People are welcome to bring their own, and got some rack gear here, mic pre's, effects processing, so on and so forth. That's the computer monitor. The actual computer's there in that little machine room there. So these are my new ATC monitors, which I really like. They're really transparent, and I'm still learning them, to be fair. I've had them a couple of months, but they're really great. I love this thing. This is a soft tube console 1 and the console 1 fader. So you basically have hands-on control of the stuff going on in your DAW. So you've got this is like a plugin here. So you control your EQ, your shaping, your filters, your drive, like saturation rather. You can even control your effect sends. From here, you can not only control the volumes, but you can also control, again, the saturation. You can control other stuff here. But basically, it allows me to not look at the screen and just listen. And it keeps me a bit fresher for longer. And the stuff that I do with it just ends up sounding more musical. I'm usually more happy with it than if I use the screen and the mouse only. So maybe there's something to that. So yeah, I love this thing. And you can just you can chop and change stuff. So you can use an EQ from one console, and you can use the filters from another one and saturation from another one. So you can kind of make this hybrid channel strip, if you will, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I love using this thing a lot. Apart from that, there's the guitar rack over there, MIDI keyboard over here, a drum kit over there for people who want to use it. I also sometimes take off the cymbals and we use live cymbals and the electronic shells, which gives you probably a bit better results than just using the E-kit on its own. And yeah, that's about it, really. A space.
Do you still use that little isolation room? You mentioned that the computer's in there. Do you still use that for amping up stuff?
Not really, to be honest with you. I think I've got using like a load box and IRs. Right. So yeah, I've sort of gotten better results out of using these technologies rather than a cab. But if someone did have a cab and a specific thing that they wanted to do, yeah, we just chuck it in there and mic it up. No worries.
Cool. All right, we've got about 30 seconds left. So cheers, man. All the best for the rest of 2022, and hope to see more recordings popping up with your name attached. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
And thanks for watching.